I made a YouTube short talking about which Genshin characters are the hottest, calling out Fischl, Amber, Mika, Diona, Nahida, and the comments under that short made me realize something. Nobody understands Genshin characters or their ages properly, and it's causing problems. In Genshin Impact, despite the variety of the units, there are only 3 female body types and 2 male body types, and these are often used to differ or infer the ages of each character in the game. If you were to head to Google and search for the characters' ages in Genshin Impact, you'll get a list made by somebody who guesstimated the age of each character in the game. Even the Archons and Adepti are only given rough ranges for their age, whereas other characters' ages may differ based on who you talk to. So this begs the question, how old is everyone? And for that, let's head in game and discuss. This is my Genshin Impact account. Once again, if you watched the previous video, you may know this vaguely looks familiar. When considering character ages, something else that a lot of people like to point to is the character body types. However, despite all the characters we have in this game, there are only, once again, 3 female body types and 2 male body types. The difference is, for the females, they have this short character motto, and the males, the closest thing we have is this one, which is the equivalent to the female's variation of this. So when talking about character ages, a lot of people like to separate the way they appear based on these mottos to represent their age. However, that doesn't necessarily work. One of the differences is, even if we're excluding the Archons, who are like 8,000, 5,000 I guess, 500 based on the tails here, we have Venti, who, canonically speaking, is either going to be 3,000 to vaguely sort of match with Xiao's own age, or if you're looking at the model he's based on, i.e. his dead friend, we have no confirmation. No character in this game gets an exact confirmation for their age. The Traveler themselves, where are they, is stated to be over or about 500 years old. At minimum 500, yet they're confused to be a minor. So even the game doesn't in any way, shape, or form allude to their legitimate age in universe. And if we're looking at each of these characters here, sure, you could point to somebody like Chi dying young, and you could point to Diona, who is a bartender himself. However, Sayu mentions that all her friends have bigger bodies or are taller than her. And something else people like to point to is, for the female middling character body type, they like to point to the breast or chest size. Hu Tao is flat. Like, she's, I believe, the flattest female model here in comparison to somebody like Yelan. That vaguely doesn't count. Same thing with Kale. So one of the core arguments people like to utilize is the body types, which we've already debunked. There are only 3. And this doesn't allude to anything. 3,000 years old, 500 years old, some form of number, and same goes here. We've actually seen the childish variation of Xiangling in, I believe, the Lantern Night or Moon Chase Festival with Guoba. Sayu, however, debunks her own statements due to her friends being taller than her. And because nothing directly alludes to the age of the characters themselves, with Barbara being the younger sister to Jean, and we already know Jean's body type, it's very difficult to in any way, shape, or form reliably place. First off, it's not like HoYoverse is developing a brand new model for each and every one of these, so we can't use that. Second, with the figures like the Adepti, who kind of vastly differ, like Ganyu's, I think, 3,000. She's around the same age as Xiao, so she's one of the older Adepti as well. And she has the same body type as Fischl. And a lot of people will either say Fischl is either a minor, like 16-ish, or some people say she's like 19, 20. The same goes for Chongyun, Razor, and so on. So one of the core aspects I like to clarify here is that, first and foremost, regardless of whichever side of the bridge or whichever side of this you stand on, it's all fictional, let's be honest here. But furthermore, beyond that point, something else to consider is, since there's no canonical stated age, it's incredibly difficult for anyone to reliably say, oh yeah, this character's a minor versus this one's an adult. Xiangling is a chef. She owns a firework business. She owns a funeral parlor. He's essentially an alchemist that has the exact same body type as an adventurer. It's not like anybody canonically lives with their parent or you actively see them. Dory is stated to be a merchant. Even right here, she's a merchant. Yet she has the same body type as Yao Yao, Sayu, Diona, and Chi, as well as Nahida, who's already 500. So the body type specification makes no sense whatsoever. And people like to go to Google, but we've already proven that Google is quite literally just somebody else's guesstimation. It's not even like Google's taking a guess, it's just pulling up a random article, whichever one most likely has the most amount of individuals visiting it. Kale is a different age in the manga, which I haven't read, but she's a different age in the manga, and she looks entirely different. So we can't even use that. Kazuha, it's the same thing. The characters don't state their own ages, and in no way, shape, or form are they restricted from doing anything in-game because of that. Faruzan has the same body type as Layla. Rosaria is the tall female body type, but Yanfei, Layla, and Faruzan. Faruzan's a couple hundred years old, or at least 1 century year old. Layla's a student doing exams, so she could either be a college student, she could be a high school student, nobody knows. Yanfei's a lawyer. So do you see where this argument falls apart at here? Even if you're looking at this one model type, you have a funeral parlor owner, you have a lawyer, a 100-year-old individual, and a student in school at some stage in their life. For the elder model, let's look at the child model here. You have a merchant, you have a disciple of an adeptus, you have a ninja, and a bartender, as well as a dead zombie chick and the Dendro Archon herself. And that makes it incredibly difficult for any state or any point for anyone to reliably say, oh yeah, this character's cute. Because first off, you could believe any character's cute and have it be perfectly fine. But the second portion of this argument hinges entirely on who you're talking to. One person could look at Fisher and say, oh yeah, she's not a minor. Another person would be like, oh yeah, she is a minor. And nobody can be proven incorrect or correct. So at that point, because there is no outright statement in game for anyone, the rough ranges you get is 7,000 years old. But if you talk to Zhongli, he talks about events from 8,000 years ago. So that doesn't answer anything. Same thing for each and every one of these other units. And yes, I have voices turned off just for this presentation because I don't want to deal with someone like Hu Tao doing her Haley Cheryl song. What I think is important to clarify here is that you can't reliably look at anybody who says somebody like Venti's cute. And I've seen people argue, if people say Venti's cute, somebody else will be like, he's a minor. And it's like, no, he's not. Even if we ignore the fact that you have like 1,000-year-old individuals here, here, and here, you still can't prove anything or reliably state any information based solely on the 3 body types in the game, or 5 if we're going to combine them all, because there's no differentiation between them. It's not like you look at Yoimiya's body type and get an entirely different impression from Hu Tao or Zhang Ling. Because if we're basing them solely off the character's personality, or even if we're basing them solely off here, none of this does anything for you. And at that point, it's best just let somebody simp for who they want to. I think the Ages of Genshin characters is honestly one of the larger misconceptions, except for, characterization, because you have Raiden being 2 individuals who introduced separately, technically, with like dramatically different storytelling capabilities for each side of that, for Archon Quest 1 and the main one, and then her second character quest. You have Zhongli having tidbits of information thrown around here. Zhao gets the most characterization from the Lantern Knight and the Chasm. Each character has an entirely different story that is either later impacted by lore or another character themselves. So since you have that, the game can't really restrict you from, in any way, shape, or form, inferring a character's age. Because if we're looking at things like Diona being a bartender, one person could say, well, Teyvat has its own laws, so you don't know particularly if Diona would be restricted from entering into a bar based on her age. But you could also use that exact same argument the other way. If Diona's a bartender, she has to be over 18, or has to be at the drinking age of Mansa, whichever one it is. I think the argument itself is idiotic. Like, just being blunt there, the argument is idiotic. At the end of the day, it's fictional. If nobody's being hurt, it realistically does not matter in the first place. Because there is no stated age of the characters. There's 5 body types. Maybe there'll be 6 when we get an equally short male model. Who knows? But the best differentiation to make is to say tall female model, average female model, short female model. Tall male model, average male model, or medium. Because that's at best what you're getting. Because everyone's going to have a differentiation of statements on ages. You could ask somebody who official is 18, 22, 15. No one knows. None of them are right. None of them are wrong. It's just based on your own personal perception. But hey, that's my opinion. Tell me yours down below. And go check out the YouTube short if you haven't already. It's a wonderfully interesting concept. Either way, consider subscribing if you enjoyed. If you watch this far at least.